I'm
And how
excited to see what everyone's bringing today.
I know, right?
I loved our last one. It was, I mean, it just was great conversation.
Yes, absolutely. So for those of you guys that weren't on last time, we had kind of like a Q&A kind of scenario because we all encountered different scenarios, different objections, you know, when we are reaching out to these leads, as well as kind of understanding the process of what we should be doing or what we should be doing next, or how to keep our systems in line, so that they're actually productive and working for us. But how I always like to kind of put it is, you know, there's no unreasonable question, because I can guarantee if you have this question, there's somebody else sitting in this meeting right now that has the exact same question. They're just not raising their hand about it. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so it's really, if you guys feel comfortable and you want to talk and ask your question, you can raise your hand and I'll allow you to speak. So your microphone will come on. Sometimes it's easier to kind of talk about a scenario or a situation that way. Or you guys have the chat or the Q&A that you can, of course, type any questions in there. Now, kind of just getting the ball rolling, we are, you know, we're now into that spring market. Everything's like picking up. I know here anyway. I'm not sure where you are, Beverly. Definitely noticing, you know, the listings coming in a lot more frequently, all around. Are you experiencing the same in Atlanta there?
Ish. It really
Yes.
depends on the properties. Yeah, it really depends on the properties because buyers are still being very particular. So I really feel that we're still kind of more in that buyer's market than we are a seller's market.
Okay. Okay. But
Yeah, so we
so
are
that
seeing a little bit more movement, but now the funny thing is with the movement is sellers getting really real with the list prices
okay.
because things have been sitting, but sellers are still in that cloud that they think that their home's still worth what it was like 5,
Yeah.
6, 7 months ago.
Yes.
So there is still some adjustments that are going on for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's it. Well, in a lot of cases, I know the Toronto and some of the areas of the Toronto market is doing well. They're going, in some areas, they're just going back into multiples, right? My area, I'm not too sure on the multiple aspect of it, but I know just even by looking at the prices in my neighborhood, you know, had they listed, like one house just sold, I'm not sure the sold price, but I know it was listed for, it was listed, I think it was listed about $75,000 less than what we would have seen several months ago, right? So, and this is like an updated home, like everything that, like in an ideal market, had they listed back when, you know, I wish I did kind of scenario, they probably would have got $100,000 more for the house. So it definitely, in all cases, I imagine the struggle is there with the sellers kind of looking at previous markets and what were happening, if they were in tune with it and having that little bit of, you know, they need to be educated. Market goes like this, right? It doesn't flatline.
And rightfully so. My condo's on the market. My 1-bedroom condo's on the market, and I really underpriced it. And this is where that knowing your market and really being educated with it, because had I had the chance to do it again, I would have done it a little bit differently, but I thought, oh, I know everything. So the last sale of a 1-bedroom in our condo association or in our high rise was 320. There was one on the market for 320. There was one on the market for 309. I listed at 285 because I needed a fast sale. And I was having this conversation with my girlfriend, and I'm like, because she's an agent that lived in a building that she was renting, and she had her unit under contract. And I said, you know I'm going to piss everybody off in the building because I'm dropping values. But number one, I wouldn't pay $300 for my own unit. B, I didn't want it because we still own a 2-bedroom in that same building.
Okay.
So it was one of those delicate list prices where I've got to sell it now. And I was hoping to get multiple offers listing it that low. Because it's literally what, 35, 40,000 below, right? Crickets.
Yeah. Wow.
So now I'm like, shit, I can't go any lower.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where you don't know until you know.
Mhm.
And if I had the opportunity again, I'd have gone in at 300 and then done the big price drop.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you don't know what you don't know. And
Mhm.
I need to sell it. So now I'm forced into doing a bridge loan because I couldn't sell it as quickly as what I thought I was going to do. So we had to take it off the market to do the bridge loan to pull the equity out of it because I couldn't just sell it. And
Yeah.
those are the conversations that we really need to be having with our clients in the regards of the price that you put out to the public is not the number that they may be getting, and you've got to prepare them with expectations of different scenarios. And one of the biggest questions that I get a lot is when you're at a listing appointment negotiating your commissions, when someone says, can you reduce your commissions? Well, my
Yeah.
go-to that never fails is, this is just a number. So whether it's 6%, 10%, or 2%, it doesn't matter what percentage I'm getting paid. What matters is how much money is going into your pocket. So let's talk
Mhm.
about how much money is going into your pocket. And I don't know that answer yet. So let's talk about negotiating my commissions when we have a deal on the table, because my job is to put as much money in your pocket as absolute possible, but I have to get paid for my expertise.
Mhm.
So when we are negotiating real factual numbers, let's remember to have that as part of the negotiation. I promise you 100% of the time, or I'll say 99.9%, because there's always that one person,
Mhm. Mhm.
they forget about your commissions when you start negotiating a deal that they have in hand. I
Yeah.
promise you. So then you have earned your commissions, because then they see you working.
Mhm.
Don't stoop to their level and start negotiating, because the thing is, they just think they need to ask it. It's not that
Mhm.
they don't want to pay it, they just think they need to ask it,
Yeah.
because everyone's told them, you should never pay 6% commissions. You
Mhm.
should never pay 5% commissions.
Well, if you don't ask, you never get, right? So there's always that, right? Sometimes they
100%.
might get less
And
because
most
there's
agents are like, oh, we can do it for this, or oh, we can
yeah.
do it for that.
Yeah.
And all it's doing is diluting the energy that you're going to bring to the table. Because if you're cutting your value out of the gate, I know for me, if I cut my value out of the gate, I'm kind of like, you're the last one on my list that I'm going to call.
Mhm.
And I don't ever want to be like that.
Yeah.
So no, I don't reduce my commissions for no one.
Yeah.
But you've
And
really got to know your market, and you really got to be able to bring that educating factor and saying, hey, if we listed at this price, does it give us room to have that number to do a price drop? Because the last thing you want to do with the listing is drop it $100 or
yeah.
$1,000,
Mhm.
5,000 or 10,000, depending on your price range, right? Because all you're doing is pissing in the ocean at that point.
Yeah.
You have to change the buyers that are looking in that price range.
Mhm.
If you have $1 million property, you have people that are looking from 950 to $1 million. So if you want to list and you want to be at that 1 million, I would challenge you to list it a little bit higher to be able to have those reductions to show and have that buffer. If
Mhm.
you know your client's bottom line is 900,000, throw a number out there, see what the market can bear, see what the buyer's expectations are, and do those big jumps, because you're going to get more movement on it.
Yeah.
But you've
Yeah.
got to explain that to your sellers,
No, for
because
sure.
I've had those listings where they're like, oh, yeah, we'll do that. And then it comes time for that price reduction, and they're like, no, I'm not reducing it. So the best thing is to have it pre-built into your contract.
Yes.
Right? Like, you have a list price. If we don't have a contract in 2 weeks, we're automatically going to drop it this.
Mhm.
So it's already signed off on in the original listing agreement. And then that way you don't have to like fight with them.
Yeah. No, and I imagine and kind of looking from a buyer's perspective, watching and even from an agent that's representing that buyer, the more significant those drops are also will show the motivation of the seller as well.
And the
right? So
leverage of the
mhm,
seller. No,
mhm,
I'm not doing that in a home inspection. I just dropped my price $75,000 or
mhm.
50,000 or 25, again, depending on your price range. No, I've just dropped my price this much. And no, I'm not doing that. You're getting a deal.
Yeah, yeah.
And here's the thing, even on my condo, I'm at 285. I paid 195 for it in 2015. Some
Mhm.
joker brings me an offer for 180.
Yeah.
I'm like, could you at least look to see what I paid for it back in 2015?
Yeah.
Like, you're always going to have those one-offs, and you've really got to
You
prepare yourself
do.
because
Well, it's and especially in this day and time, I don't know here, and anyone piping up if it's happening in your markets with interest rates and people, and I know your mortgage structure in the States is different in Canada than in Canada. But we basically, after, you have a 25-year mortgage, 5-10 years, you kind of set it for that. And then at that time, you have to redo the mortgage at the current rates and things like that. And anyone that's on variables right now, just with the hike in interest rates, their mortgage payments have, in some cases almost doubled or like $1,000 more a month, and they can't afford it. So they're being forced to sell. Um, does anyone on here, or even Beverly, if it's happening in your market, finding that buyers are watching and their agents are watching listings, kind of monitoring things and coming in a little bit more aggressive with their offers, anticipating that that might be the scenario for this person? They just need to sell it before the bank takes over, because they need to just like get it off. I can't afford this extra 600, extra $1,000 a month, because everyone lives on a budget, let's face it, right? So it's a substantial amount of money for some individuals, and they're being forced to sell, not because they want to, but because they have to sell in order to continue a comfortable lifestyle.
very interesting. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's kind of what got us into the problems back in 2008, because
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot of new construction that were selling the interest only loans. And
Okay.
then, there were 3-5 year arms. And then when that readjustment happened, they couldn't sell because the properties wasn't appraised because the values had reduced so
Yeah.
much.
Mm-hmm.
And those are those difficult conversations that you have to have with your sellers and with your clients, because let's face it, our mortgage payment is conducive to our lifestyle.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to be mortgage broke, because it tremendously affects your lifestyle. And that's how you have those quality conversations, God bless you, with your clients, whether they are a buyer or a seller. It all comes down to, what do you want your lifestyle to be like? Because as a buyer, if you want to work where you live, but the prices are too high, is it going to work and fit with your lifestyle? Because what you have to take into account, you may be paying more for a house, and you may want to readjust where you're looking further out. But what's that going to do to your lifestyle? Your gas money? You may be taking eat out home more because you don't have time to cook food whenever you get home,
Mm-hmm.
and your time is money on a commute. So people say, well, if my mortgage payment, I'm just going to use an easy number. If my mortgage payment's $1,000 a month living where I work, but I only want to afford 800, so I'm going to move an hour away or 45 minutes away. Let's talk about how much that's going to be in gas. Let's talk about how much that's going to be on your 45 minutes that you're not going to be home.
Mm-hmm.
Is it worth $200 a month to move further to not have the convenience? And your sellers, from the same standpoint, right? Your lifestyle, if you're having difficulty affording your mortgage, let's look at the options. What else is out there that you may have an opportunity to keep your lifestyle? Because
Mm-hmm.
it all comes down to that expectation and the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Every single person has an expectation in the home that they're living in. I don't care who you are, you have an expectation.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
And all our job is to create that opportunity
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that opportunity is there. It either is or it isn't. It's either going to meet the expectation or it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, really, real estate and sales is as easy as that. I mean, that's sales 101 right there.
Hmm.
So but it's learning how to have those conversations and those difficult conversations, because I can promise you, even myself, being a real estate agent and having the knowledge that I have, you're so connected to the situation that it's difficult to make that decision.
Hmm.
As much knowledge as you have and as smart as what you think you are, you need that outside perspective to be able to ask those right questions to kind of trigger those points to say, oh my gosh, yeah, true. But it's learning those questions and having that knowledge of your market to be able to create those different scenarios for your clients.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, is anyone in here with the leads that you're calling, encountering scenarios where often enough we're asking their situation, if they currently own their home, if they're renting. Ideally, if they own the home, we should be trying to, the goal is to try to get that CMA done for them, have that face-to-face meeting. Are any of you guys getting pushback currently? And again, we all are in different markets, right? So they're all kind of doing different things right now. Are any of you guys getting a little bit of pushback from your leads that have homes to sell, as to they're putting this on hold because they're waiting for the prices to come back up, or any kind of signal that that's kind of what they're doing? They've seen a price in the past, and they're not seeing that again, and so they're just kind of standing on the sidelines, kind of waiting for it to kind of hit that. This is my agreed upon, this is what I ultimately need to sell at in order for this to happen. Is anyone in here encountering that when you are reaching out to your leads?
I'm very interested to know. I'm very interested. And while we're waiting, to that point, Crystal, it's so important to recognize what people are going to be paying and what that looks like. So the home that we're buying, we're supposed to go to settlement May 1st. And I offered to pay rent to move in early. So I offered to pay $2,000 a month to move in until my home sold.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted $5,000 to go into escrow that would go towards the sale to hold until we went to closing. So I'm paying a mortgage. My mortgage is like with my HOA, with everything all in, it's like $1,900 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be doubling what I'm paying a month. I'd be paying $2,000 on rent plus my $2,000 mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
So doing that math and looking at the logistics of what that is, that's how you can get a seller to either A, reduce the price, or B, is it more beneficial to do a bridge loan? Is there a potential to pull an equity line? What are the different case scenarios and what does that look like? So now I'm doing the bridge loan. I'm paying for the appraisal, which is like, I don't know, $800 or something. So I'm paying for the appraisal one time. The closing costs are like $3,000. So I'm rolling that into my payoff, but I'm borrowing extra money. So I owe 150, I owe like 158.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to borrow the 60,000. So my loan amount's going to be, let's just say 230.
Yeah.
It's an interest only payment. So my payment on that condo is not going to change.
Yeah.
So it's cheaper than me paying the $2,000 a month rent.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to walk through those scenarios to be able to put facts on paper for people to be able to make decisions. So that's why I always told my clients, I'm like, I'm not here to tell you what to do. My job is to give you all the information so that you are able to make an educated choice on what's going to be best for your family. Because, yeah, I mean, are we splitting hairs? If I'm paying $1,000 for the appraisal and then I'm paying $3,000 for the closing, so I'm losing that equity in my home, but I'm not paying $2,000 a month extra.
Yes.
right? It's like it's not coming out of my checking account every month. It's kind of rolled in, and I would rather have it rolled in and not really miss the money that I don't have anyway.
Hmm. Yeah, having an extra $2,000 payment is
Painful.
not well, exactly, and it's not even feasible by many, right? To all
Yeah.
of a sudden have that extra payment, right? When people are like, just thinking about like looking to buy a new car, and you got to factor in those monthly payments, all of a sudden, $500, $700 a month payment can be a significant deal to a lot of individuals,
And
right?
that's what
Even
you
the
have to
quarter.
look at when you're trying to get a price reduction from the seller. You know,
Hmm.
if we've been sitting on the market for 1, 2, 3 months, how much is it costing you from moving forward? And you've really got to look at it from that perspective, because it can cost people a lot of money if their home doesn't sell right away. And you can really get them down in price and get that price reduction when you have those real conversations.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
When do we get live calls? When
I
we
know,
have a live willing
I know.
body,
Yeah,
anonymous
exactly.
attendee.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was just sending them a message. We need somebody. So everyone that comes on here, and we love having you guys on here, and a lot of us really enjoy taking in what we're learning, but no one really wants to ever be in the hot seat. So it's really hard to do live dials if everyone just wants to listen but not participate.
Yep.
Um, it can definitely be tricky. I will put, actually right now, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to put my email in the chat. Again, if you guys are interested in having, and we jump into your CRM system, take a look at what's going on, but really kind of give some feedback, insight based on, what your pain points or what you're encountering or what she's recognizing that's happening in your system. But ultimately, she does try to hammer out some calls just so you can hear how those, how she initiates the conversation, what questions she's asking, how she's handling those objections that might and are likely going to be thrown at you when you are contacting them. But again, we need people that are willing to be in the hot seat.
Well, it's not even so much the hot seat that willing
It's
for
not,
to call
yeah,
their leads. I mean, what
yeah.
do you have to lose? You might get an appointment.
Yeah, I know. And sometimes it goes really well, right? So it's it's like, so Ricardo Maderos is down. Okay, well, I'll add you to my list here, Ricardo. Because I'm always adding people, then time comes and no one's available. It is a busy time of year. I 100% appreciate that. So it can, you think you're available and then you're not. But let me put you in there. So we'd be looking, Ricardo, into May. So I will reach out to you with
So
respect
Ricardo,
to
what
that.
has been your biggest objection so far with the leads that you're calling? And it'd be great if you could come on if you want to talk. Then I can get a feel for your site.
And again, I think so it's been doing lease leads. Okay, it's good. That's good. Now, how are you finding your lease leads? So lease leads, generally speaking, low hanging fruit, right? So those, where it can be trouble is they're all over the place sometimes, right? And it's hard to, or they're signing up all over the place because they're frantic and they're short term, right? They like giving notice to decide they've got 30 days, 60 days, they got to find something that like it's all like really fast. This is 100% where convenience is key, right? Staying on top of your filters, being consistent with what you're doing, offering the solutions, educating them, building the trust, taking them out, right? There is a whole process to it. But again, it's also pre-qualifying those lease leads. I know lease leads, there's a lot of them that come in and there's a lot of them you can't help, right? As much as you may want to help them, there's nothing you can do as a professional to, try to convince a landlord to, or somebody being represented by another professional to accept somebody that's on income assistance that has a really poor credit score and two cats. Like it's like impossible, right? So That's where, and again, anyone that's doing lease leads, is there is an email. Again, if you guys email me, I do have a lease email that I put together. I can send it to you, and it's just more or less, and this is more Canadianized. So if there's anyone here from the States, Canadianized, just with like Equifax reports and stuff like that. Obviously, if there is the same kind of factor in the US market of requirements, just swap them out. But it's basically an email that is outlining what you need and why, right? So, we need your credit report and why we need this, your pay stubs and why we need this, a letter from a current landlord even, and why you may want that, right? So it's kind of a lot. I find a lot of people, especially these people don't know you, right? So now you're thinking, I need you to give me your pay stubs, your credit report, all this stuff that's fairly personal information. They want to know why you need that information. Like, why is this important? How does this factor into what we're about to do? And people will be more willing, generally speaking, giving you information on that. So we've got a few.
Sammy said he's up for chatting.
Yeah. Sammy, do you want to talk right now? Or you want to schedule yourself in for later?
Sure.
All right. Okay. All right. So here, let me just give you, yeah.
Sam's going to have the same conversation that you're probably going to want to hear.
Yeah. So allow you to talk here, Sam, so you can jump in if you wish to. And I'm just writing some of these names down in my list. Yes, you can.
Okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. This is unexpected, but I have been using AgentLocator off and on for about 4 years.
Okay.
Happy with the platform, just in terms of my finances. I find that the expenditure is always outweighed by my annual commissions. I kind of look at it in that way, as opposed to kind of day by day. I learned the hard way that it has to sort of be looked at that way. I've probably earned over 6 figures of commission, but I have been using AgentLocator for maybe close to 5 years. But just specifically, I'd say in the last 6 or 7 months, conversion has been extremely low. I'm very, very diligent in terms of follow-ups with calls. I walk that fine line of being persistent and being a total pain in the ass. I do people who unsubscribe, people who tell me to F off. Some people are responsive every sort of stage of development. But lately, I've got people who I've been sending stuff to who open my emails. I guess this is the question for Bev, maybe. These are people who, and I've heard Beverly describe people, these are like my people, so to speak. 900, 1,000 days in the platform, looked at something 2 weeks ago, 7 days ago, still ghosting me, still unresponsive. I just can't get them to, I can't convert, can't really get to the next stage where they trust me enough to maybe have a Zoom call, where I'm maybe providing some information in terms of the buying process, whatever. Lots of people just stuck in that kind of inertia, and subsequently I'm stuck there too. So that's my spiel.
Well, and it's perfect. So I'm looking at Gabrielle's message too. How do you deal with people who never reply to emails, calls, or texts? So this is definitely an alignment, right? And I think truly and honestly, knowing our market and the differences of today's market versus 6 months ago versus 2 years ago. When you look at the market, our leads and our conversion is very indicative upon what's happening with the market. So if you rewind to a year ago, it was very difficult to convert then because everybody had an agent, because everyone was writing multiple offers. So it flooded the search engines with everyone looking because there wasn't enough inventory. So we've accumulated so many more leads because of the way the market was then, that now without that communication with our leads, we don't know where they are in that process. And they may have been somebody that possibly bought And now they're just really curious on the change of the market, going, oh man, we got screwed. Like we pay way too much because look at the prices now. And they just may be really curious on what's going on with the market. Or they might be the ones that didn't get the home and had to rent. So if they didn't get the home and had to rent, those people are coming up now to start moving into that purchase, because if they did a 1-year lease, they're coming back up again. And it is very frustrating to know where are they in the process, because we haven't had those conversations. And that is what kind of throws me into, okay, what's the solution? Well, all we need to know is, have you bought a home in the last year? That's one trigger question that you could email out or text out. Have you purchased a home in the last year? Are you planning on purchasing a home within the next year? Because people will do one-word responses normally in text messages. So all you want is to know, are you worth me trying to communicate with you or not? Because I can guarantee you a big piece of the database isn't even worth communicating with. But where the problem lies is we don't know until we know.
Yeah,
So
I agree with that. I feel like I've got a lot of sort of dead weight sitting within my CRM that's been there for a number of years, just sort of curious onlookers, like I said, 900, 1,000 days plus, who continue to open my emails. It's just difficult to move on. It's kind of a mixed message. I have tried that sort of 300 text blast with sort of a simple question. And I find that, most people, I'd say 90% of people continue to sort of ghost from that, but I certainly get a handful, quite a few responses, a lot of no's. Just,
and that's the important factor, right? As long
yeah,
as
it's no problem. Yeah,
your
it's
process of eliminating and knowing, okay, these people responded, I know where to park them in my database, and then now I'm going to work on these people. Let me ask you, Sammy, and even anybody on the webinar, chime in. When did your market kind of halt?
Well, I'm in Toronto, I would say Q4 of last year. Once we started to see significant interest rate hikes, it slowed things down dramatically.
So is it safe to say people that were in that buying process through the summer that didn't get a home, are they starting that process of looking to see what's on the market right now to prepare themselves for the fall?
Yes, I think the way you've reframed this, I think it makes sense that a lot of people who might have originally been inside my dashboard were trying to maybe capitalize on a low interest rate and got stuck with rate hikes. Because I've certainly talked to a number of people who have told me that they're waiting it out, waiting for houses to drop, interest rates to drop, whatever. And then I have to have a speech about the market and expectations and such. And I'm this voice on the other end of the phone who they don't trust and really know yet. So it is tricky, but I think you're onto something with the time frame and when they originally started. Another thing I try to do, maybe you could give me your thoughts on this as well, Beverly, is one thing I try to do is during that initial phone call, get people introduced to my mortgage broker. Crystal was talking earlier about getting that information on the phone, and they don't know me. They're not going to start talking about pay stubs and whatnot. I have a pretty poor success rate in that regard as well. My brokerage has a mortgage center, and I make introductions after what feels like sort of a warm call with somebody saying, sure, introduce me to your mortgage broker. And then, I'm kind of like 0 for 5 or something after a day of making those intros, where it feels like I'm making headway. And in hindsight, it's only, okay, they're just trying to get me off the fucking phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is one of those delicate conversations that are sometimes hard to have, because people do feel pressed then because they feel like they're being sold to. So in that instance, I'm sitting here thinking of, like, because I love analogies, and I'm sitting there thinking about, I'm like, okay, if I've told you that I don't like pizza, don't even know why that came out of my head. If I'm telling you I don't like pizza, and you're trying to still sell me pizza, but this isn't like a traditional pizza. Our crust is like this, and these are the ingredients that we put, and I'm checked out. I don't care, right? I don't like pizza. I don't care how much you've changed pizza. I'm still thinking of my pizza my way. So
I
when
guess I'm not, sorry to cut you off, but I mean, first of all, I don't know how you can not like pizza, Bev. You're crazy. But
I love pizza. I
I
mean,
mean,
I don't even know why it came to my head. It just came to my head.
the truth is, I'm picking up in most cases some buying signals from people. I asked them, would it be helpful if I made an introduction
Okay.
to a mortgage broker? I asked them point blank, and that's in response to me hearing them say they're not clear about their financing. So it's not just me trying to just sell them something they don't need. I'm clearly, I'm trying to be valuable to them. And then I'll follow up with my mortgage broker and say, did you hear from so and so? So and they're like,
Yeah,
no,
they will
I
never call. They
sent
will
them a
never call.
Calendly invite, and I tried to get them and then it's a cat and mouse game, me trying to get a hold of these people to say, did you I understand you never connected with our mortgage people, can I help and whatever, and it's just kind of more of the same shit, basically,
Well,
for lack of
and so to your point, that definitely changes the game, right? Because they're kind of ready, willing, and able, at least they say. So an analogy, and then I'll follow it up with giving you some words. My home's on the market, right? I have to do a bridge loan. She sent me an email on Monday and she said, page 8, I need your credit card information. I need this form filled out so that we can order the appraisal. Now, I'm trying to do a bridge loan. We are right now April 19th, and I'm trying to close on a property May 1st. We all know the urgency of getting that appraisal done so that we can close on the bridge loan, so that we can close on the new home, right?
Yeah.
Extreme urgency. I was so crazy busy on Monday. She's texting me Tuesday morning, Bev, I need your credit card information. I need your credit card. I'm like, why don't you just call me with it? Like, why don't you, right? So it's something as urgent as that I didn't do. So the problem, and I hate to use that word because I don't want to say it's a problem, is just people's innate nature. If it's not a major rock in their shoe that they have to do, I promise you ain't nobody going to do it.
Yeah, it's
because
true.
everything else in our life is way more urgent, right? So when we were really starting with the buyer consultations of bringing buyers into our office, that we never had that when I started real estate. That was something we moved into. And then the problem became nobody's showing up, nobody's showing up, nobody's showing up. It's the same thing in phone conversations on why they don't follow through. A, some people are afraid to find out. They don't want to know what's going on. And B, it's just not yet a priority in their life, and they don't understand the expectation of why they should have that conversation. They think it's too premature. Oh, well, I'm going to be buying a house. Like I don't need to talk to anybody. So they don't understand why that conversation is so important. So A, immediately don't ever have them call the lender. Have the lender call them. Put the ball in the lender's court, because the lender may just catch them and be able to have that conversation, because your buyer will never, ever call a lender.
Well, let me get your opinion on this. What I do is, again, this is in response to me trying to provide some value and solve a problem. I will say, well, in that case, can I make an introduction to a very good lender that works in my office? Sure. And then the next step is a sort of a boilerplate email I send to my lender with the client copied. Mm-hmm. And then I see a response from the lender saying, nice to meet you, Joe Smith. Yep. Here's my calendar. Please feel free to book something. I'm looking forward to meeting you. And then the communication drops off. So it's not me saying, I hear you. Getting somebody to pick up the phone and call a lender is like not going to happen. But it's a bit more, I feel like it's a bit more structured and still not really working. And we don't have to, I feel like I'm hijacking this session.
No, this is real conversation, because this is everyday stuff. So you're not hijacking it at all. So in that reality, and it really comes down to whenever we have those conversations with our leads and they want to receive the emails of updated properties, but they never open up the emails, right? I like to hit the objection before it becomes an objection. So I like to frame that conversation to that buyer. Okay, I know this probably is not a top priority for you. And probably when my lender calls, you're not going to answer the phone. That's okay. I just need to know when you don't answer that phone, or if you don't answer that phone, how would you like us to continue that follow up? Because I don't want to feel like you're blowing me off. Get it out right then and there, because then they have a little bit of guilt and they're like, oh, I got to take this call. Because now there has been an expectation that has been set, and they know they're telling you how to communicate with them. So when they tell you how to communicate with them, then they're running away from themselves. And honestly, if you can't catch them after that, you probably don't want them anyway.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be a horrible
agree.
client. And that's really, it's we look at it as a loss, but honestly, if you vet all of your communications that way, you can look at it as a blessing. Because how bad does it suck to have communication with buyers that are horrible and won't get, like, you're at the wire and they need to get documents to the lender and they're dragging their feet. It sucks.
Yeah,
So
I
I
like
would
that.
frame
And I've heard a variation on that is, where should we go from here? You told me this, I didn't hear back from you. Where should we go from here? And then
if I don't hear back from you, if you don't answer the phone, my lender will call and text you. And again, I know it's not a high priority, but if you don't respond, when would you like them to try to call again and try to text again? Do you want them to do it same day? It was just bad timing. Do you want them to wait a week? Like, what would you like me to do? Then that way you've framed that whole relationship and you've kind of set your boundaries. And people like that because they're not used to that. And it's really kind of setting that accountability.
Yeah, I like that. Very good. Took some notes here, Bev. Thanks.
Yeah, I like to beat my objections before they become it, because we know people aren't going to answer their phone. So I just call them out on it. And you can make it in a joking way. Like, hey, I know whenever I call you next week, I'm not going to be your priority. But so when you don't answer the phone, what do you want me to do? And then they start laughing. I'm like, oh yeah, I will. I say, okay, so if you saying you're going to answer the phone, can you do me a huge favor right now? Save me in your phone as your favorite realtor. And then they laugh. And say, no, I'm serious. Or Beverly's a rock star. And then they laugh. Seriously, can you save my number so that you know it is me whenever I call? Because I don't want to feel like I'm blowing up your phone, but I just really want to do my job because you're telling me to do this. So I just want to make sure that you know that it's me that I call when I call. And I can't tell you how many people save their numbers. I mean, it's more than not save my number in their phone. And how I know, hey, Beverly. So whenever I call them, they're literally addressing me by name.
Good one.
Yeah, that was great, Sammy.
Thank you. Thank you for your insights. I've got a page of notes.
Absolutely.
We do have some in the chat. So yeah, the same properties. Someone, I guess, in the Q&A is kind of reverting back to, when it comes about their job or credit score, most don't feel comfortable answering those questions, and what's the best way to ask those questions. Beverly, do you deal with rentals at all in your market?
Oh my gosh, I hate rentals. What was the question, Crystal? Was it renter specific?
So yeah, well, generally, but not always, because it can affect obviously with your buying power. But when it comes to their job and credit score, they don't feel comfortable answering questions about that. So what's the best way to ask those questions? Backdoor
it, baby. Backdoor it. Have them answer it and they don't even realize what they're saying. I mean, that's always my questioning tactics. How do you backdoor that? Where are you living right now? How much are you paying a month right now? Is there, this is the way to direct that question. Is there anything that is on your credit that you have a concern about? because you're putting that pressure on them and you're not judging.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're asking them, is there anything that you have a concern about? You're not asking how much they're making. You're not asking this, but I do want to know how much you're paying in rent right now. Because if you're paying 1,000 in rent, you're looking for something for 2,000. Hello, red flag, right? And again, I'm just throwing numbers out there. Don't hold me with numbers,
Yeah.
but just look for those red flags because they're there. Yeah, I don't like to ask people those like personal questions.
Straight and
It's kind of like going to the bar and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
right?"
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very pushy. So
Yeah.
I do like to just frame it. Hey, is there anything that you have any concerns about that may prevent you from a credit application? And then that's when you're going to get it.
And a lot of times too, it comes down to educating them on the process, right? So, and it could very well be similar in the US, but anyone that's putting an offer in on a rental property has to also include the supporting documents generally, right? Or will want to, that they have decent credit, they have the income reference, whatever it is to help support their application as a tenant. So if you educate them as to why they're going to need these, so I'm going to need you to get these, rather than asking what's your credit score, things like that, is getting them to provide those to you. And then you're also at that time, if they feel comfortable, obviously giving it to you, but you can look to see, okay, so this is what their credit obligations are. This is what they're making, yet this is what they're looking for. And then you can start to ask questions surrounding that. It's like, okay, so I don't want you to be house poor. I see that you're anticipating renting at 2,600, but based on what I'm seeing here, your income and your debt obligations, how is that going to be feasible? Because you're going to be house poor at this time if you have this, and that is going to also raise concern for a landlord. Right, a landlord looking at this, you got to remember, put your eyes in the eye, in the hands of a landlord. If you were the landlord looking at your documentation, would you feel comfortable with somebody that's stretching their income for housing, just to have that? Like, you probably wouldn't feel comfortable with that, right? So again, it kind of comes into the educating them as to why they need those documents. And again, if you don't feel like saying it over the phone, say, hey, well, I'm going to send you information because we are going to need to gather some documents in order to, that we're going to require when we put in any offers. And it's better to have this before we start looking at anything. That way, we're prepared to put an offer in right away if we see something that you like. But at the same time, if they're getting that to you beforehand, you're able to evaluate it and to see if what they're looking for is actually feasible, or would a landlord actually go for it.
Well, it's important too not to assume. We as salespeople, it's just in our nature to kind of vomit and just like overload people with information. So it's just asking that question too. Are you familiar with the rental process? And I'll say, oh yeah. Say, well, so then that we have to do a proper credit check and you have to have the security deposit and blah, 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 blah. So when you're asking them if they're familiar with it, you can kind of just reiterate instead of trying to sell them on what you need. And if they say, no, I've never rented before because I'm staying with mom and dad or whatever, well, this is what you can expect. And that way, again, God gave us 2 ears, 1 mouth. Like, just really listen and listen to what's not there, because you can really truly read that person on the other end of the phone. If they're like, yeah, okay, well, I'll get back to you, that's saying I'm not going to be able to rent a house with all of those categories, right? And just let it go. You're not losing anything. You didn't have it in the first place. And just, I said, count as a blessing and not a loss.
And then I'm not sure what in Toronto here, our rental rate it's actually not bad. We used to have like almost like a 0% occupancy rate. It's actually improved. They put a lot of rental things, but anywho, the rental market, back when the real estate market was just going nuts, the rental market was also going nuts, right? So properties were just getting snagged. The rentals were going over what they were being, what was being asked of them. Like, the prices just like skyrocketed. And so that, as well as is creating that sense of urgency of why this would benefit you, right? So if we get ourselves in a situation where two people, two different families fall in love with the same place, you're prepared to put an offer in right away. They may not be.
Yep.
Right. And you don't want to be the person that's not prepared and the other person is.
Yep. 100%. That is a great question. And it is, you know, it's asking respectfully, and not just going right to the jugular.
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, it's like putting yourself in that shoes. So some random person call me talking with this. I have no idea who you are. Now you're asking me how much money I make and what's my credit score. And like, did it, like, you know, some people are definitely open books and they will tell you
some people
everything. Right. And a lot of people are very protective of that stuff because, again, there's so much fraud and scams going on out there right now. They don't know who they're talking to. Right. So they're a little bit more cautious about what they're providing over in conversation. Sometimes we have to work up and build the trust with that individual before they're willing to actually hand it over.
Yep. Great question, though.
Ask a general question again, if the floor is open here.
Of course.
I'm curious to know what Beverly's thoughts are on people who have been looking for a long time, people who have opened emails consistently. What would be your sort of loose script to try to just get them touring and seeing places, to get them from that point where they know you, they've seen your name in their inbox, that you've talked to them multiple times. And I always ask, are you ready to see some places? No, not quite yet, blah, blah, blah. So what would be a way to incentivize somebody to get out there and take it to the next step?
This is one of my favorite questions, Sammy. Have you bought a home?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple of houses. Yeah.
How long ago did you buy the home that you're living in now?
I was understanding there would be no math in this session. I think it was like 15 years ago or something like that.
Okay. So 15 years ago, why did you buy that home? What was going on in your life that made you move?
I had just had my second child. We needed more space. That was really the biggest inspiration, more space for more kids.
And when you started, were you in real estate then? Did you buy your own house?
I was in sales, but no, not in real estate.
Okay. So when you started thinking about knowing you needed to move, how long was that process?
First of all, you're assuming that I had some input in this. This was my wife's doing entirely. So
that's even better yet. But anyway, so how long was that process?
I understand what you're getting at. I mean, the truth is, I was very, very hands off, but I think I see where you're going. I mean, there was a couple months where we're, pounding the pavement pretty regularly when we had gotten
right. So how could I have incentivized you to move quicker? I couldn't.
That's a leading question, and I hear you. No, you're absolutely right. While I was asking you, I was thinking, how do you lead a horse to water and get them to drink? It's
they're not thirsty.
Yeah.
They're not thirsty. You can't. And that's our misnomer, right? Because our brain says, you're online looking at homes, you must want to buy a house. But that's not true, right? We can't incentivize anybody to do something that they're not ready to do. All we can do is ask the questions of what is most important to them and what would a perfect case scenario look like for you? And then, is there an opportunity in the market that meets that expectation? So it's not about incentivizing them. It's about getting the real story of what has to happen to make that move. Because I honestly don't give a shit when anybody buys. I just want them to use me. So what can I do different that you remember me when that time is right? Because if we can create a dashboard of that pipeline, of those conversations, there's way more value in the quality of your leads. Because now you've had that conversation, you know exactly what has to happen in their life to make that move.
but
Because
what,
some
that makes
people don't
sense,
know when that something has to happen in their life. Like
right?
me,
They have to be,
I can make my move, but I can't make my home sell. So there's
so
nothing
with
incentivizing.
that said, Beverly, what would be, if you see somebody who is opening emails, who is
Mhm.
effectively engaging with what you're sending, they're not at the stage yet where they're touring homes, but what is a way to have meaningful contact with them without being a pain?
Yeah.
And not
So
having to block your phone call, your number after, your
if
fourth
if
attempt at
it's
calling them.
people that you have spoken with in the past, what I like to do with those is leave a voicemail and say, "Hey, Sammy, this is Beverly. I know we talked a few months ago. I see you're looking at some homes. I'm just want to check in, just wondering where you are in that process, what your time frame is. Don't worry about calling me back. I'll check back in with you in a week or two. But feel free to shoot me a text. I don't want to keep calling you. I just want to kind of get a gauge of your time frame." That's it.
Yeah.
And they'll respect that, right? And give them the out. Just shoot me a text and give me a month, give me a year, give me a time. When is a good time to just touch base? Because I don't want to keep calling you if the time's not right. Give them that out. And you usually get more of a response with that. But because seriously, all you want to know is when the hell are you going to buy a house? But we can't just ask that, right? So we have to really sugarcoat that conversation and make it about them. Hey, I
Yes.
was thinking, or my favorite line is, especially if you know where they're looking. Hey, I was just driving through the neighborhood and I was just thinking about you. And I wonder, like, where are you in those plans?
And
That's
then they
always a
say,
really good one.
6 months away. Do you connect with them between?
Great. When do you want to start this conversation about moving forward? When do you want me to contact you to start this conversation about moving forward in 6 months? Let them guide it. Always ask them when. And people appreciate that and they remember that because you're making it about them. When is it a good time to call you? When is it a good time to follow up with you? Do you have a home to sell? When are you thinking about putting it on the market? Do you have to sell it before you put it on the market? When is a good time to educate yourself on the process? Because I don't feel there's ever a bad time. And I always, always tell people, my job is to not sell you a house. My job is not to put a sign in your yard and make you buy something. My job is to educate you to be able to make decisions that is going to be conducive for your family at the time that's right. But you can only do that if you're educated. When is a good time for us to sit and just talk real numbers? When would you be ready for that? And they'll tell you what might be a couple months. And the craziest thing that I usually see is reciprocating is, oh, give me a call next Monday. I'm going to be out of town this weekend. You're like, oh shit, I thought you were like 6 months away. And then you go into that again. Okay, well, if I give you a call on Monday, if it's not a good time for you to answer, I don't want you to feel obligated to answer, but how would you like me to follow up on that second call? Do you want me to text you? Do you want me to call you again? Once you got them on the phone and you're having that conversation, just set that expectation and set that tone. See, it's okay if you don't answer the phone on Monday. I don't expect you to answer whenever I call, but how would you like me to follow up with you? Don't ghost me now, because I'm gonna take it personal if you don't answer the phone and now you never talk to me again. And make light of it. And people appreciate that.
Yeah, that's great stuff.
Yeah,
It's
I think we're the
remember
ones that are
such,
quick to say they've ghosted me. And it's like, no, they're just fucking busy. You're not a
Yeah.
priority in their life yet.
yes, but at the same time, I there is such a fine line between follow-ups and kind of burning a lead and
There is.
having,
And that's why you ask that question. Then you know there's no guesswork. Because I'll tell you what I hated, Sammy. I would set my follow-ups and set my follow-ups. I'm like, oh God, why did I set this for so soon? Like I would talk myself out of why I shouldn't call them because it didn't feel right to call them then. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like I'm creating my own story. Like just ask them, put it out there. Because then it makes the follow-ups a heck of a lot easier whenever they told you to call.
Yeah, that's so true. I will often reset and sort of calendar, retask something where I just spoke to them or just tried
Yeah.
to call them.
Like, why
whatever.
did I do that? Yeah. Yeah. So if you put it on them, then you have to do it. And then it doesn't feel weird. Because you're like, oh, they told me to. Yeah, okay, cool. And I told them if they didn't answer the phone, I would do this. Yeah, take the guesswork out of it.
Yeah.
Put it on them. Make your job easier.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Great stuff, Sammy. Thank you.
No, this is totally unexpected. I love the private session here, Beverly. It's great.
Yay. We didn't get live dials in today, but we got good stuff in.
I mean, the truth is, I watch your videos. I know that you're closely aligned with Agent Locator, and I've been using Agent Locator for a long time, like I said, successfully. But it just feels like in the last 6 or 7 months, things have dried up, generally speaking. And it's
well, and I think
really
there's
hard
definitely
to
room
push the yardsticks
for
forward.
opportunity.
Really hard.
There's definitely room for future opportunity because a lot of those people that did not buy in the height of the market, those agents are not going to follow up with them. I promise you.
Yeah.
And some of those agents probably aren't even in business anymore. So I think there's a lot of great opportunity sitting in our dashboards. It's just getting them to answer a text and that's why I like the blanket text message. Do you plan on buying a home this year? Or do you plan on buying a home within the year? Just getting a simple yes or no and getting a hand raised. And then you're really going to start to understand the quality of your dashboard.
So what would you suggest if somebody's like 12 months away or no, I'm no longer interested? Maybe Crystal.
Great. Is there anything that I can be doing in the meantime to make your process easier?
Do you cut back on the frequency of what you're sending them to once every month?
No, I would keep it.
Ask them.
Keep it.
And I would just ask them, do you want to receive updates on homes? How often would you like to receive the updates on homes? When would you like me to check in with you with a phone call? Ask them.
Yeah, somebody that's generally, I gotta say a year plus out. You're looking at 90 days to basically 6 months till you next check in on them if they have no intentions of moving.
It's at that point where I often will curtail the correspondence in terms of email because there was a time when I wasn't that on top of it, and people getting daily emails who are 6, 7, 8 months out, they unsubscribe. So I err on the side of less is more.
Well, that's why I always like to ask them, how often do you want to receive communication?
Yeah. If you ask them on the listings, the system is set to send you an email daily. Should there be something that matches your criteria? Is that going to be too much? I don't want to feel like I'm spamming you. Let's reduce it. Do you want me to reduce it to weekly, bi-weekly? That sort of thing.
Does that, I should know this given my history on the platform, but Crystal, does it resort to every 2 weeks or whatever, once a week after 7, 8 days of daily?
No, it'll stay on daily. The only time it starts to automatically reduce frequency is if the lead stops engaging in the emails. After, I think it's like after 30 days or something like that. If there's been no opened emails or things like that, it starts to reduce the frequency. And that's not just because we don't think they don't want to look at them. It's also to protect our spam score, right? We have a positive score spam rating. So it's also to help maintain that and prevent emails from going into spam.
So one has to really be on top of that because the daily emails, I know that just being on the other side, signing up for tips and whatever from people, a daily email is pretty intrusive unless you're active. So that's good.
Yeah, and it depends. A lot of people like looking at real estate even though they don't have an intention of moving just yet. Right. We go through waves. Like I'd be on there every day looking at listings. Now I do it weekly. So it's we all have different reasons. And again, a lot of people just like looking at it because they have a dream or they want to, they're just not there yet, right? They're just seeing what's out there, kind of comparing it to their home. So yeah.
Awesome.
Perfecto.
All right, so
Awesome.
we should be doing some live dial-in after everyone asking those questions. Ricardo, if you're
Yeah.
still with us, I expect to see you in 2 weeks or the first of the month.
Yeah.
No excuses.
Yes, we'll have someone. I've got 4 names on this list now that I can call for that first or the second session, or even into June, because it's real estate. And this time of year, you guys, obviously, if a client comes first, if you have a CMA to go do, or they need to go look at houses, and that's the only time that comes first automatically. So that's where sometimes we have people falling off this time of year. But we now have more people that we can reach out to. So next session, we will be able to make calls.
Crystal, if you want to put me on that list too, I'd be up for that.
Sure. I already did.
Hey, I love it. I love it. Well, I think today was a
Awesome.
slam dunk.
When should I be back in touch with you, Crystal? No, just kidding.
Awesome.
Well, I
Perfect.
will see you all in, oh my gosh, May.
Yes, we're already there. Time is flying by.
Well, have a fabulous day, guys. Thank you for spending your hour with me.
Yes, likewise.
Sammy, and thank you.
Thank
See you
you.
guys
That was
in a couple
awesome.
weeks.
Awesome.
Alrighty.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.